Nonverbal communication is an essential part of human interaction. We often use nonverbal communication more frequently in our daily lives than verbal communication. Through nonverbal communication, it is easy to gather cues about individuals and determine their behavior and attitudes. In the hit comedy television show The Office, there is an abundance of interpersonal interactions that portray different aspects of nonverbal communication, and we will be looking at a few examples today. To begin, it is important to fully understand what nonverbal communication is. According to our class textbook, nonverbal communication can be defined as the intentional or unintentional transmission of meaning through an individual's non-spoken physical and behavioral cues. Being able to both transmit and gather these cues is an essential part of being an effective communicator. To further understand nonverbal communication, we will look at some cues people transmit in interpersonal interactions. There are many different ways to send cues nonverbally. Some examples include body language, hand gestures, facial expressions, touch, space, and tone of voice. The process of gathering nonverbal cues can at times be more effective than verbally communicating. People may transmit multiple nonverbal cues at one time, but it is impossible for them to verbally tell you more than one thing at a time. Now that the background and importance of nonverbal communication has been established, analyzation of nonverbal communication in scenes from The Office will follow. In Season 1, Episode 1 of the show, Michael the boss tells Pam, the receptionist, to meet him in his office for a chat. He informs her that the company is planning on downsizing and she will be one of the people that will be getting fired. What Pam doesn't know is that this is a prank that Michael is pulling on her. When we can see nonverbal cues from both Pam and Michael in this scene. Nonverbal cues from Michael in this episode include eye contact and body language. People often avoid eye contact with the individual they are in conversation with when they are lying. This holds true when we see Michael avoiding eye contact with Pam when he is breaking the news to her that she is fired. Along with the lack of eye contact, Michael is also quite fidgety in his seat. Fidgeting body movements are an indicator that someone is uncomfortable or nervous. As for Pam in this scene, she uses the nonverbal cues of facial expressions and body language. Facial expressions are the universal way of expressing emotion. In all places of the world, facial expressions such as happiness, sadness, and fear can be easily identified. One can notice Pam's facial expression turn from natural and relaxed to upset and confused when Michael breaks the news to her that she is being let go from the company. Pam's body language is used as another cue. Her shoulders slump and her posture becomes worse as the scene progresses. Michael picks up on these cues and determines that Pam is upset and he needs to break the news that it's a prank. Paralanguage uses pitch, speed, hesitation, gestures, and facial expressions to transmit and collect nonverbal cues. Volume is one of the main aspects of paralanguage, which we will explore more in the next scene. In Season 4, Episode 16, Michael is involved in yet another interpersonal interaction, this time with his sales representative Stanley. Stanley is one of the more laid-back characters on the show. He never seems to express very much emotion. That is until Michael decides to fake fire yet another one of his employees. The nonverbal cues used by Stanley include paralanguage, more specifically volume, as well as proxemics and facial expressions. Paralanguage is used through the volume of his voice. He starts out calm by asking Michael, "Are you serious?" And the conversation intensifies when Stanley raises his voice and begins to scream at Michael. Proxemics deals with the aspect of space between two people in conversation. Stanley takes steps towards Michael, which shows aggression. Finally, Stanley's facial expressions are quite animated in this scene, making it easy to tell that he is upset. In Season 4, Episode 4, we see yet another example of nonverbal communication. There is a prominent love triangle in the show between the characters Dwight, Andy, and Angela. Dwight and Angela previously had a secret relationship that has now ended, and Dwight is quite upset. Angela decides she now wants to pursue Andy, so she walks up to him at his desk and tells him he now has permission to ask her on a date. She does this in front of Dwight, knowing it will upset him. Sure enough, he storms out of the office. Dwight finds himself in the stairwell where he transmits many verbal cues to his coworker Jim, who came to console him after seeing he was upset. His first cue is crying. This is an easy determining factor to see that someone is upset. Eye contact. Dwight avoids eye contact with Jim because he doesn't want to show weakness. And silence is Dwight's way of showing respect to Jim because Jim decided to tell Dwight a heartwarming story to try and make him feel better. Kinesics are visible body movements. Dwight has his entire body turned towards the wall, which shows that he is vulnerable and embarrassed. Finally, touch is the final aspect of nonverbal communication used in this scene. Once Jim is done with his story, he quietly gets up and leaves the stairwell, and Dwight doesn't even notice that he has gotten up and left, so he reaches over to give his friend an embrace without noting that he has left. The final scene analyzation comes from Season 9, Episode 3. In this scene, Jim pranks Dwight by sending an imposter to pretend to be him at work. Jim in the show is a tall Caucasian man, and Jim, who is sent in the office to prank Dwight, is a smaller framed Asian man. Dwight uses nonverbal cues to quickly determine that he is being pranked. Nonverbal cues from the fake Jim include physical appearance and artifacts. Physical appearance is our choice of clothing, color, hairstyle, or other aspects that contribute to our physical looks. Dwight uses this cue to quickly determine that that is not his friend Jim. Next, artifacts are personal possessions displayed to others. Jim sets up his imposter with a fake photo with him and his wife, Pam, and they are trying to further the prank to get Dwight to fall for it. Overall, the show is filled with an abundance of nonverbal cues in each episode. The characters do a great job of using their facial expressions, gestures, posture, and other aspects of nonverbal communication. Without the presence of nonverbal communication, the show would not be nearly as funny or easy to understand.